Hello, all. Welcome to another session of Management Principles and Applications. And today we are going to start our last unit, that is Management Challenges in the 21st Century. As we all know, change is the law of nature, and business, by its very nature, is never static. You will have or you'll face all the time the different challenges or different things coming up. Significant and accelerating changes are taking place in the social, technological, economic, and political sphere. A business firm operates in an environment, and therefore changes in socio-economic conditions exercise significant influence on the organization and management of business enterprise. These changes will create new challenges as well as opportunity for the upcoming managers. No manager can afford to ignore such changes. Good management must accept and face these challenges. They must focus the challenges because these challenges will have a direct or indirect impact on the theory and the practice of management. And of course, mastering the new challenges calls for new information and skills on the part of managers. It is through the application of superior knowledge and skills the managers can make use of these challenges to their advantage. So, in the global scenario, managers are facing several challenges always. Some of the challenges are posed through different things like technology, or let us discuss what all challenges a management may have to deal with. The challenge of globalization. Now, globalization is the international integration of intercultural ideas, perspective, products or services, culture, and technology. Globalization is an influential modern topic that highlights the growing interdependence between different countries worldwide, necessitating managers to appropriately incorporate these trends within their strategy. The speed of modern globalization is often attributed to technological developments in communication and transportation, tasking managers with appropriately leveraging these technologies internally. Multinational companies cumulatively employ nearly half of the world's population, creating a need for managers with a strong international awareness. Managers must understand that some process can be performed universally and internationally, while others must be done in the localized fashion to adhere to each specific region's tastes and customs. Critics of globalization cite the way in which it motivates an international culture over established domestic ones, as well as the negative environmental effects that result from business expansion. Being mindful of the potential opportunities in a global economy, along with knowledge of how to localize and sidestep the negatives in an international marketplace, can capture large value for effective managers. Managers should also be aware of the best way to approach global demographics from a business to consumer perspective, taking an international product or service and localizing it successfully. We have seen many examples here. I've been giving you example of McDonald's or Domino's. So these are all they've localized their product according to the needs of the Asian markets as well. So in Japan they have a rice burger. In India they are using without the burgers and patties without beef. So this is a significant challenge necessitating consideration for different tastes and branding strategies during the implementation process. Now, so it is something like making note of element of production that cannot be universally applied without giving it a localized touch is what is globalization all about. Managers must also be particularly aware of the current criticisms of highly global society, particularly as it pertains to ethical and environmental considerations. A global economy is in many ways enforcing a global culture. This global culture is often criticized for taking the place of previously established domestic cultures and motivating consumerism. Now, as a result, managers should carefully consider how to best localize products to retain cultural identity in the regions they operate. Environmental concerns are also of significant significance, that as the constant energy utilization requires for this interchange is pollutes the environment and uses high quantities of valuable energy creating resources. Minimizing the damage done to the environment and offsetting it as best as possible through philanthropic giving is not only a wise marketing move but also a critical ethical consideration. The second ones are the challenges of ethics and governance. Now, what are ethics? So, these are set of principles that help us distinguish between what is right and what is wrong, right? So, ethics help us define good or bad, just or unjust, whether it's fair or unfair. So, ethics basically influence the behavior of an individual towards the moral values. um, Ethics are significant because they are concerned with something or someone beyond our own selves. They focus on others' interests. Therefore, ethics form the basis of a civilized society by defining the right way to do the things. And also, the ethics help in identification of our rights and obligations to others. Ethics are helpful in shaping up a society, philosophy, culture, or religion, right? So, while values are individualistic, ethics are for a particular society or a culture over a period of time. So, in business ethics is the study of business situations, activities, and decisions where issues of right and wrong are addressed. So, therefore, business ethics becomes a set of principles or standards which help the business in ensuring fairness towards the stakeholders of the business. They guide to how the business should be conducted in a morally right way so as to not exploit the public at large and the stakeholders. So they basically aim at the societal welfare. Business with strong ethics is socially acceptable as well as very much desirable, right? Having said that, a business cannot be ethical on its own. It's the managers and the corporate strategists that can implement ethics within the framework of the business strategy. So, corporate ethics and shareholders' desire for profitability are not always aligned, and it is the responsibility of executive management to ensure ethics supersede profitability. In its simplest form, corporate ethics is a legal matter. Abiding by laws protecting workers' rights and appropriate compensation is a top priority for management. Corporate governance and ethics become more difficult with the indirect implications of particular practices, making it important to assess the way in which certain operations may adversely affect the community at large. Managers are the primary decision makers and therefore must hold themselves accountable for the way in which a business operates and affects stakeholders, shareholders, employees, and the community at large. The first thing is accountability. First and foremost in corporate governance is the strict adherence to business ethics on a professional level. The figure, it is the way to highlight the primary responsibilities of the corporate managers, right? So, understanding the rules and regulations are in place along with societal and personal expectations of ethical actions is an absolutely critical and fundamental concern for all the managers. The complexities and responsibilities of running a business and managing employees is the first priority for managers as it holds the highest repercussions, both personal and physical, for all the parties involved. Next is there has to be legal foundations. Why am I saying so? It's because there has been the recent string of scams and scandals in the business world that has brought the focus back on the importance of values and ethics in the business. We saw Ketan Parekh security scam in 2001, Satyam computer scandal in 2009, Sharda chit fund scam, Punjab National Bank scam in 2018, and Nirav Modi scam. All these are some cases which have shaken the investor confidence and highlighted the ethical issues in dealing of these companies. These cases reiterate the need of following well-defined business ethics. A business may believe that it can benefit from corrupt and unethical practices, but this profitability and growth is short-lived. When the unethical practices of the company are brought in the public domain, it adversely affects all the stakeholders. While the perpetrators of the fraud or scam face legal actions, even those who had no involvement or knowledge of unethical and illegal practices, they also face hard consequences. So the business has to lose its reputation, the share prices fall, leading to severe losses for shareholders, the fate of employees also become uncertain. So it even negatively affects other businesses because of loss of confidence of foreign investors in the Indian companies. So the decision to behave ethically is sometimes not very easy, as it involves rejecting the route that would lead to the biggest short term profits. However, in the long run, ethical practices are more beneficial. So one must go in for an ethical route, because you will gain long term growth and profitability, and it is good for your reputation as well. And in the long run, it is going to attract skilled and talented human resources in your organization, or that is going to improve the employee motivation and morale, which would actually lead to investor confidence, and overall customer satisfaction and loyalty is also going to increase if you are an ethical organization. So the importance of ethics is actually growing globally, and in these turbulent times, many businesses have realized the rich rewards of ethical practices. More and more companies have understood the link between business ethics and financial performance as well. So companies with a commitment to ethical conduct consistently outperform companies that do not display ethical conduct. So, recently Wipro and Tata Steel have been recognized by the Ethisphere Institute as one of the world's most ethical companies for the ninth year in the row. So ethics and values together serve as a foundation of sustainability of business in today's world, and this all comes from the legal foundations as well. So so, at its most basic, ethical behavior can first be derived by the laws, rules, and regulations of the country in which a business operates. In the United States, workers are imbued with the very specific rights regarding the risks they take, the hours they work, the breaks they deserve, and the benefits they are provided. Managers are the responsible parties in ensuring these are delivered to the employees in an equitable and then legal way. When working over 40 hours a week, hourly employees are entitled to overtime pays. When working long shifts, employees are entitled to breaks. When working in dangerous conditions, employees are entitled to protective gear and training. So, all these are ethical and governance practices that the companies are performing, or they are imbibing those values for the long term profitability of the company or the business. The third is the challenge of diversity. In 1960s, the US began identifying trends in workplace diversity and addressed them with legislation. This evolved into a societal change that embraced diversity as both valuable and ethical. Diversity poses various challenges in communication, from differences in language to differences in culture. Understanding these cultural differences and what they may accidentally communicate is critical to effective communication. Majority cultures have a tendency to create a homogeneous environment, possibly limiting the potential diverse opinions can provide. Groupthink is a threat of which managers must be aware, particularly in meetings where dominant opinions steal most of the spotlight. Different perspectives are where the highest value can be captured in diverse environments. So, the ability to manage diversity as well as refine actions to communicate accurately and intentionally are valuable and necessary aspects of effective management. There is a value of diversity, so the globalization has resulted in enormous cross cultural relationships along with high percentage of domestic diversity. As globalization creates higher potential value in approaching diverse markets and demographics, understanding how to manage a diverse community internally is a priority for management. Through creating a more international community and increasing variety among workforces, companies stand to benefit enormously from meaningful diversity in opinions and perspectives. This opportunity, if not properly utilized, becomes a threat as the competition grows more effective at leveraging diversity to create synergy. Therefore, staying competitive requires the creation of an effectively diverse workplace. So, within the challenges of diversity, we have to understand that all human beings are very different. They differ in their skills, talents, capabilities, attitudes, beliefs, values, and behaviors. These differences are shaped by their social, cultural, educational, and economic backgrounds as well. So, if a person joins a workforce, these differences may still exist. So, as the world grows closer through globalization and the technological improvements, so there has been increased differences among employees in the workplace coming from different backgrounds and countries. So diversity is what is recognizing, understanding, accepting, appreciating, and enjoying people's differences like age, education, ethnicity, gender, physical and mental disabilities, race, sexual orientation, and spiritual practices, according to Griffin and Hirsch. So, the workforce diversity is basically employing a heterogeneous workforce with differences in their various attributes. But this diversity, of course, is going to pose challenges for the managers, and a manager has to manage this diversity in order to be productive, because no two individuals are alike. Yet diversity is very important and very complex. More and more businesses are growing across the national boundaries, and people are becoming varied, in their perceptions and educational awareness and ambitions. So also the women are joining the forces and focusing on their careers. Minorities and historically oppressed groups are also getting support from the government and the public to come on the forefront. Society is accepting different sexual orientations. All these changes have brought focus on diversity at workplaces. So the globalization, the diverse customer base, the women workforce, and changes in legal and social environment has actually created such a diversity. So despite of these successful trajectories, the challenges to diversity naturally occur as a result of communication, the languages and values, majority hegemony, and groupthink. So communication is a challenge, right? Communication is at the heart of diversity management, but not necessarily for obvious reasons. Linguistic differences, while certainly is a challenge, are tangible and straightforward. Learning new languages or translating materials is a reasonably effective approach to addressing these difficulties. But the more difficult challenge is the intangible in communication that arise not from literal words but from cultural expectations. Different cultures not only speak different languages but adhere to different values that draw different assumptions and define different actions as appropriate or inappropriate. Overlooking these cultural differences can result in miscommunication that may go unrecognized. Now, for example, in China, it is quite important to understand the concept of Nunakshi, the face, particularly as it pertains to paying respect to guests or superiors. Overlooking these customs send unintentional messages that can do irreversible damage. Or if I take an example of the Western culture, they handshake, but in our culture we do not handshake. And if you are shaking a hand with a female worker, it may not be considered as good in India or in Pakistan as in the Western culture. So you have to be very very sensitive about the culture and the cultural expectations per se. Then majority hegemony. Majorities in business creating a homogeneous culture is also a substantial threat, as company culture is a direct product of the participants. This can result in business that creates and promotes a particular culture over other minority cultures, usually unintentionally as a result of numbers. These hegemony can create tension between different groups, ultimately resulting in the smaller groups moving towards the culture of the larger ones, or close the dissonance, a practice called assimilation. Assimilation should be shared responsibility, not simply assumed by those in the minority group. So, in the Gulf countries, they take 4 breaks in between for their namaz. So now a person who does not follow Muslim culture would find it unnecessary that you're taking a break and going, and then the other person has to follow your work. But that is what the cultural diversity brings to you. Then the group thing. The most substantial threat these communicative barriers and homogeneous tendencies create could loosely be defined as groupthink. Groupthink is when many people within the same organization begin to adopt similar perspective, usually to simplify meetings and minimize discord. On the surface, this consensus sounds like a good thing. However, as the global economy requires business to understand various perspectives, it also necessitates the cultivation of these diverse perspectives internally as well. So, groupthink will often result in assimilation or of dissecting perspectives. The opportunity cost is precisely these different viewpoints. Without differences in perspective, companies have little room to expand into new demographics or innovating new solutions. So that's why every company always welcomes new ideas. They may or may not follow them, but yes, they would keep them and would work on them, and may adopt them as the right time comes. The role of the management in the abridging of the diversity. So, different cultural norms offer an interesting study in diversity management. Etiquette for receiving a business card in China requires accepting it with both hands and taking a full moment to read it. Following this, recipients place the card face up on the table in front of them during the meetings, referring to it when necessary. In US, a strong handshake and a self-introduction is a polite start to a meeting. Conversely, in Japan, it is appropriate to wait to be introduced and then bow following the greeting. So, how diverse are the cultures? Managers must be not only aware of diversity in the workplace but also open minded and empathetic to the perspective other than their own. Effective managers in diverse situations have highly developed degree of cultural competence that empowers them to use careful observation skills to determine what gestures, phrases, customs, and values would be most appropriate in a given circumstance. Adroit management must also work actively against groupthink, empowering everyone not only to speak but to be brave enough to go against the majority opinion. The goal for management is to ensure everyone is working to assimilate to everyone else in balanced and effective manner that harvests differences rather than smoothing them over. In recent times, technology has changed very fast, right? We live in a very fast changing digital world. So, with the technology, the digitalization has penetrated in our lives. In it is a changing. It is actually changing the way we communicate, interact, and do business. So digitalization is involved using sophisticated IT infrastructure networks and digital technology tools like cloud computing, data analytics, big data, social media to bring changes in the operations, processes, and behaviors. It helps in realizing customer expectations. So, in technology, maybe digitalization is the buzzword in today's times. Companies are fast understanding its importance and adapting digitalization so that they can succeed in the competitive environment. It is actually streamlining processes and increasing productivity, leading to automation and eliminating human error. A company which fails to recognize and adopt such technological changes may lose out to its competitors. So, managing new technology requires a thorough understanding of business technology management, which consists of 4 general parts. Managers must understand how to achieve internal efficiency by applying new technology to the operational process. Business should create strategic business units focused solely upon managing a company's technological strategy, keeping pace technologically requires extensive research and strategic analysis of potential value of acquiring innovations. Implementing new technology requires retraining staff and eliminating the natural friction that results from making operational changes. Managers should be aware of the value in research, development, and forecasting future technological innovations to keep ahead of the competition. So, the first is technology and management. Managing technology is an intrinsic part of managing a business, and effective balancing resources to optimize efficiency is an important operational objective for all the managers. Varying perspectives and strategies in technology management abound, all revolving around a few simple needs being filled to move the business towards a competitive advantage. The reason behind the prioritization of technology management is that new disruptive technology constantly threatens to result in a higher efficiency of competitors. On the other hand, effectively managed technology affords business the opportunity to outpace the competition. So, entire this technology race is about being competitive or having competitive advantage in the business world. Now, what is business technology management? From a general standpoint, business technology management focuses on understanding how technology fits into an organization's process and structure. So, it provides the opportunity to streamline operations and produce higher quantities of quality information. Now, BTM can therefore be divided into the four elements. What are these four elements? The process. So, business, whether they provide products or service, always have a set of process that defines how deliverables are generated. These processes need to be assessed for efficiency and effectiveness, particularly as they allow for optimum potential modern technology. The second is organization. Businesses are constructed under the assumption of synergy. The whole is more than the parts. Each of strategic business units or facets of organization complements one another to create an ability greater than the sum of its parts. Establishing an information technology department within a business that will function with upper management and throughout the ranks allows for proper implementation of the business technology management. The next is information. So, technology evolves exponentially, often changing faster than the businesses can easily monitor. So, performing appropriate research and analysis of current technological environment generates the highest return on the investments demanded by keeping pace with the technology. The next is implementation. After a business organization has a mature IT department that understands the company processes, the department can work with an understanding of the available technologies to upgrade and implement these innovations. Implementation includes training employees, monitoring the return on investment, maintaining new technology, and eliminating friction from the necessary operational changes. Now, change is always complicated, and businesses benefit greatly by adopting change management techniques when integrating the new technology. Now, how to keep up with the technological progress? Managers must also realize the importance of acquiring technology talent that can keep pace with the environment. Why? Because of two reasons: the potential to uncover new competitive advantages through internal development, the capacity to forecast up and coming technologies to construct an investment roadmap that always keeps the competition a technological step behind. Developing new technologies in house is particularly relevant to industries on the cutting edge, like semiconductors, green energy initiatives, etc. While forecasting is more critical for the users or consumers of these industries on the business level. Now, combining the BTM with research and development will ensure managers are properly equipped to tackle the challenges of modern day innovations, leveraging these capabilities to differentiate from the competition and derive stronger margins. Managers across the board must be aware of the importance of these technological developments as well as the operational challenges in researching and implementing them. The next is the challenge of competition. Managers must know their business's strength and integrate them into the appropriate strategy to remain competitive. So, if we see, Indian firms are facing increasing competition from goods produced by foreign multinationals in India and the imports. Nirma faces competition from Hindustan Unilever, Procter and Gamble, etc. So, a company that fails to go global is in the danger of losing its domestic business to competitors with low costs, greater experience, and better products. It must measures up to the standards set by the leaders in any part of the world. So, in order to be successful in a globally competitive market, a company has to be global in both production as well as marketing. So, intense competition among countries, industries, and firms at a global level are the outcome of several trends such as decline of barriers to cross-border flows of products, services, capital, labor, technology, etc. So, the companies that forge opportunities out of challenges emerge as the most enduring and endearing enterprises. So it is like you have to have opportunities lies in the middle of difficulties. The first step is to acknowledge and know your enemy. The second is to focus on more profitable segments and conserve resources in fringe segments. Get your priorities right and then be flexible. Flexibility is essential in shifting market dynamics. Also, you have to create value by offering innovative products and services. Loyal customers are what is required by your business. Use extended warranty programs, extensive service networks, more competent and committed service providers. So it is about not the strongest of the species that survives, nor the most intelligent one. It is the one who is the most adaptable to the change survives the best. So all those technical changes were also there to stay in the competition and have a competitive advantage like we've seen before. So in that case, low cost strategies are when the companies sell a product or service at the lowest possible price point to stay competitive. A differentiation is an alternative strategy to low cost in which companies fill a specific need that is not being filled or generate a brand image that increases their value added propositions. Then high quality is antithesis of low cost instead of efficiency. So the strategy focuses on effectiveness, creating the best possible product to capture market share. Then companies also compete internally, either developing naturally competitive products or battling for funding based upon unit success. So the managers must understand all of these competitive strategies and align them with their perceived strategic advantage to stay competitive. In case of the competitive strategies, from a managerial perspective, competition generally falls into external environment through though it can also take shape in the internal environment through rivalry between strategic business units. For managers, understanding the external competitive landscape is a critical factor in assessing company strategies and benchmarking appropriately to ensure the competitiveness of the firm. So, businesses that fail to keep pace with their rivals will eventually be overpowered and often forced to develop an exit strategy. Avoiding the risk of competitive factors demands a strong understanding of operational efficiency, quality production, differentiation, and competitive advantage, or who you target and whether or not you have a cost or quality advantage towards them. Then low cost and branding. So the simplest perspective on competition is in industries where products are homogeneous. In such a situation, companies compete directly. Like bottled water producers are directly involved in such a framework and thus adopt two basic competitive strategies: low cost and branding. Low cost suppliers find way to optimize their production and distribution to offer consumers the lowest possible price on one bottle of water. Low cost suppliers often benefit largely from economies of scale. What is branding? Branding aims to convince the consumer that a higher price point is worth paying based upon the company's name, reputation, or other distinguishing characteristics. Now, for example, Dasani brand water costs more than the generic store brand water. Despite being essentially the same product, Commercials, aesthetic presentation, goodwill, and factors other than price may then influence a consumer's purchasing decision. Differentiation. Most products and services are not homogeneous. However, allowing incumbents in an industry to compete with one another by means of various competitive strategies. Differentiation is a competitive tactic wherein companies approach certain niche needs within an industry to capture a segment of the market share. An example of differentiation might be a cereal. There are hundreds of different kinds of cereals. The need being fulfilled is sustenance. People need to eat. The producers of these cereals use differentiation to capture a share of cereal market. Some brands focus on their organic nature, others their sugar appeal, and still others on being cool. Branding plays an important role here as well, though assessing niche consumer needs and filling them is the principal focus. Then, quality. Finally, there is the potential to compete externally based upon quality. Toyota makes both the Corolla and the Lexus, thereby targeting both ordinary automobile drivers and those in the luxury car consumer bracket. Quality competitive strategies, while relating to the brand, provides a particular level of quality to capture a specific income or interest demographic. The opportunity cost of efficiency is associated with quality, which generally sees higher price points. Quality is therefore a strong antithesis to the low cost strategy. Then, internal competition. Businesses also compete internally and intrinsically complex issue. On the surface, internal competition involves either direct product substitutes or funding competition. An example of internal competition is PepsiCo. Pepsi makes both colas and sports drinks, all of which sit on the shelf next to one another. When a customer sees the sports drink and chooses it over the cola has lost a sale to an internal competitor. Pepsi, however, did not lose a sale, it merely lost one segment of the business while gaining the other. With these points in mind, managers must thoroughly understand the products they are pitching and which strategy will help them avoid going toe to toe with other businesses with whom they cannot compete. Starting up a car manufacturing business to compete with Hyundai in the low cost market is very difficult, as Hyundai has economies of scale in place that will almost always beat smaller competition on a low cost strategy. Now, this example illustrates an extremely important point in the business, that is, rely on your strengths. Managers must understand their own competitive advantage, what they do better than the rest, to adopt the appropriate competitive strategy to gain market share and remain profitable. What is the conclusion about the management challenges? If we look into the future, data governance will become an integral part of business strategy. Recent Gartner research predicts through 2022, over 75% of data governance initiatives will not adequately consider artificial intelligence potential security risks and their implications, resulting in quantifiable financial losses. Ethics and privacy in the digital landscape are growing concerns with the advancement of artificial intelligence and the lack of regulation making tech the last Wild West. In the next 5 years, 30% of the government and large enterprise services using artificial intelligence will require the use of explainable and ethical artificial intelligence or machine learning, which is why this should be considered now and form part of any business data strategy. It has to be a people centric technology. For 35 years, we have advised organizations on how to put their people first, and this is still the case. How does the tech or technology impact your employees, your customers, your partners, and increasingly bring purpose to your business role in the society? Rather than building your technology stack in isolation, you need to look at your business strategy and how the technology will help you achieve your business ambitions. Change should be incremental and crucially choose your technology solutions. There are literally hundreds of powerful tools and systems which promise the earth, but what is often overlooked is these need relevant expertise and training to succeed. This user led environment can be challenging, and we reiterate in the data world there are no silver bullets. Then, last, avoid unnecessary risk. A great place to start is by commissioning a proof of concept. These are relatively cost effective, should take a short time, and will give the business assurance that the project will deliver. Often, a proof of concept will highlight areas of the project which may need developing or refining and test that a system or tech solution will work. When working through the proof of concept, it is important to keep checking what the objectives of the project are and refining the scope. Data transformation can be hugely challenging, and with so many data projects ending in disappointment, the proof of concept is an ongoing and essential tool. So, these are the management challenges which the new managers are going to face in the 21st century. Thank you so much for listening.